Welcome, everybody. And I'm so glad that you could all join us this morning. Maybe just a quick introduction. Maybe some of you are here for the first time, but just a reminder, that here at the Catalyst Collective, we are exploring that interface or the integration between human intelligence or human ingenuity and AI. So that's what we're all curious about and what we're exploring. And these mid-month sessions is essentially to share with you some of the innovations, some of the more interesting things that we've come across where human intelligence and AI can amplify each other. And so this morning, Linda is going to share something really exciting with us, where I think AI can really, help amplify human intelligence. And it's called Conversational Intelligence. So, Linda, I'm going to hand over directly to you so that you've got maximum time to take us through it.
Okay, great. Thanks, Sonia. So, just as a kickoff, before I have a slide deck which I'll take you through, and it's not going to be hours. But I think I've been in this space for many years, in the space of communication, leadership development, organizational engagement, etc. And one of the things I've always felt is that the way we have executed research has always fell short. I think that we have, in so many instances, we have question-led research, and the answers that you can give are either you agree or you agree strongly, woo, or you disagree or you disagree strongly, or in actual fact you don't care, so you just mark them, tick the middle box. And so whatever we get there, I think firstly it is so orchestrated and pre-planned by the people, creating the questions, etc., that I'm not always sure you get the Likert scale, thanks. You get the best out of that. I'm not sure you get the best information that you can from that. And so I think, and then you put together, what do you call them, interventions, and none of them really work. And the next time everybody says, yeah, well, we've done this all before and it never works. And so this is a different tool. It's a different way of doing research. I call it reverse research. We actually have conversations with your teams using AI to have a conversation. And in that conversation, there is so much more uncovered. And we've done a couple now. I'm actually just busy with data of the latest one. And it just blows my mind every time of the information that we get. Because now you're having people who want to have a conversation, but they've never got somebody to speak to and share their heart with. So we're finding that the length of time people spend on the survey is between an hour and an hour and a half. That's an enormous amount of time. So let me take you through how it works, and then we can all chat about it if that's in order with everybody. So let's see whether you can see my screen. Can you see my screen? Cool. Okay, so I can't see hands up. Charles, you'll have to.
I'll do that.
Guys, if you want to chat in between, just put your hand up, So this is a product, it's called Haven, and I love the name because that's what you're looking for. You're looking for a safe haven to have a conversation about things that are on your heart and you feel uncomfortable or uneasy just having conversation with anybody in the organization. It is run by a company called Feedback Rocket, and I'll give you some more information around that. And we apply the intelligence layer to it. So they have got the operational layer, and we apply the intelligence layer to it. So let's take you through how it works. So really what we discovered in the ones that we've done, that the conversation itself becomes the intervention. Most surveys are seen as obligations. I don't know how many of you get the stuff from Woolworths. I do. I can't stand answering it, but I think to myself, hey, R1,000 voucher, I'll do it. It's going to take 10 minutes out of my day. Now, a lot of people do that with surveys, and a lot of people don't even participate. So at the end of the survey, we've had people that have said to us, this is the first time I've done a survey, enjoyed it. I felt gratitude for being able to do it. These are verbatims, okay? The one said, I was quite sad when it was finished, so I decided to go back and add more. So they wanted to talk about something. They thought they'd finished, and then they went back to go and add more to it. And that's another thing that's really great about the system, is that you can have the conversation. You can decide halfway through the conversation, I think I've got to go and make tea, or the kids are crying or something. You can stop it, password protected, and you can come back and you complete it later. And only once you've finished it, it might take you a day or two, do you then send it through. So it's not like most surveys where you have to sit down and get on with it. You've got this opportunity to have this continued conversation where you might actually want to skip a question because you think, oh, I've got more information on that I just need to go and check up on something and come back. So the participants' feedback on it was absolutely astonishing and has been now. So we've got a couple of layers, and I'll speak to you about those now. But the first thing is the detection layer. In other words, what are we solving for? What do we want to understand? So this one, which is just an example, I've based on an employee engagement, okay? But Mel, you were talking just now about everybody's just implementing AI and they don't really know how they're pulling it together and how it's going to benefit the company and ultimately what the ROI is going to be. And so that could be one of the detection layers. The detection layer there could be a detection layer of AI usage and how it's affecting the organization. And as an organization, you determine what you're wanting to detect. What are you wanting to have conversations with the people in your business about? Because you know what? The answers are all there. They have the answers, but they're just fragmented. They're never given an opportunity to talk and share it with somebody. It's always, oh no, the meeting is coming to an end, or sorry, we don't have time right now, or somebody talks over you and you never get to finish the conversation. So there are some other, which we've just put in some other things that you can have promise versus experience. So for sales, for instance, you could do it with customers. This is what we promise. Are we actually delivering this? And you could even ask your staff that. This is our brand promise. Do you believe that this is the experience we're creating for your teams? And then they could also be sort of like the belief versus reality gap. So leadership believe that we're open and honest, but the teams are saying, nah, not really, So you could choose whatever detection you want. And then we will configure it such that the Haven is actually programmed to answer the questions in context. So it understands what you're searching for. So it keeps that context and then it responds accordingly. So end to end, how does the system work? So there's the three elements of it. There's the detection layer or attention lens, which you determine. Then there's the extraction layer, which we have the conversations with the people. Then there's the identification layer, where we take all the data that we've received back from everybody and we sort it into themes and sub-themes and what were you solving for and what are the things that came out. And then there's a whole bunch of things that come out where people just said right at the end, it says, if you want to talk about something else that you think may assist the company, please do so. That in its own generates a report because there's so many people who've got great ideas. Yeah, there's also the wine and cheese gang, but you kind of like get the best of both worlds. So once we've got that identification layer, we now have an added layer, which is usually what a normal survey can't give you. And that's this. Is this a process problem or is this a feeling? And often it's a feeling. So it's a distrust, a mistrust in the system. It's a guarding, I'm not going to actually help here because it's going to come back and bite me. And this you've never been able to pick up in a survey. But we can pick that up now through the words you use and through the tone of those words. And I'm going to come back to that shortly. So the process problem, it's fine. I asked somebody to do something and I never got an answer. And 1 week later, I had an upset client. We lost the account and it's cost us 5,000 Rand. So that's a process problem. But how they feel about that and what happens in that process, how that breaks them down, or what makes them think, I'm actually not going to want you to get involved with this or go and look for another job or whatever. This part here is the part that we've never been able to get through normal surveys. And then there's the recommendation layer, which we then come in and we say, all right, fine, let's now segment those, the people and how they're feeling. Are they resilient? Are they struggling? Is it a well-being issue? How do we actually identify that? And then how do we identify the structural and process issues so that we can then give recommendations? Now, a lot of clients will tell you, yeah, but we do this, we've done it before, etc. So sure, we can take the findings that they've done before and we can include it into the process side so that you get a holistic view in the recommendation there. That's not a problem. But this part here, you have to get through Haven. And then there's what we call tension labs, or we could also look at them as ideation labs, where we can now say, all right, now with all of this, we can take a look and say, where do we need re-engineering of the business? Where do we need leadership training? Where do we need AI implementation to alleviate the pressure and the hard work? And that for us is such a key point, because everybody thinks, well, they're coping with their job, but they're not actually. And there's areas in their job which can be made so much easier through AI, but they don't know how to identify it and where to identify it. And then when they do, what AI do I use? You know, do I need ChatGPT, or do I need Claude, or do I need Higgsfield, or do I need Perplexity? And every department in the business is different, because if you work in marketing and design, you're going to probably want some kind of image generation. You're going to want one of the products which creates videos like HeyGen. And then your set of tools for AI and what you need to know about them is completely different to what others need to know about them. But because we now understand where in the business the problems are, we can now apply the different sets of tools, apply what we're solving for, and therefore we can start understanding what the metrics should be and how we achieve ROI. And then this goes obviously into implementation, and it goes round and round, but it comes back to Pulse as well. So Haven Pulse is a system whereby what we do is we take the new implementations or interventions, we feed them into Pulse, and we open Pulse so people can go and have conversations about how they're faring on this topic. How are we feeling about AI right now? What are the things that are working and what aren't? And then once a month, once every 3 months, really depends on the speed and how you want to fast track the implementation. You determine when you're going to draw that information down so that you can redirect your intervention in the direction you need it to go. So that gives you some idea of how the product hangs together. So a couple of things. The same score can mean two completely, entirely different things. Is it a process? Is it a feeling? And this speaks to structural, slow, illogical, costing real time and money. The process itself is broken. And this speaks to, I'm feeling overwhelmed, so I just switch off. I'm fearful of what's going to happen. I mistrust the people around me. And this is an emotional signal. So if you've done change management in an organization, you will understand that the types of interventions are completely different for these two elements. This is sort of like a more agile and business reengineering, and this is more of a it's more of a what Sonia calls ways finding, trying to understand yourself as an individual, a resilience. How do you actually move forward around this? So these are the areas which we can then focus on to come up with the information we need. So let's just say when it's a feeling, because this is something that I believe we've never had empirical evidence about. So as organizations, leaders, you go there and you think, I think this is a problem, but you don't have empirical evidence, and therefore it's just your opinion. And so how can it count? Whereas what this does now is we can understand whether the teams are energized and negative based on the feelings of frustration, anxiety, and ambivalence. And we can decide whether they're depleted, which is based on the resignation, overwhelm, and indifference, or whether the trust is broken, which is around cynicism and guardedness, or whether they're assets to protect, pride, hope, and relief. And this also depends how quickly we're going to get a turnaround on whatever intervention we put off. So this is a fast payoff. We'll manage to show some low-hanging fruits within weeks. This is staged. It's a symbolical win. We'll get something within 30 to 60 days. This is slow. This takes quarters to change. And this is time critical, and it's perishable, because you've got some people that you can move into a space where they feel more energized and therefore they want to come back on board, or they feel that they were just depleted, but that the ideas are good. But this is a really tough one. This is where trust is broken so badly that people can't really recover quickly, and you just go around in loops. So when you want to understand how people feel, you pick that up in the conversations, don't you? You instinctively know that, because you have a conversation with somebody and you think, geez, like there's a cynical person, or that is a glass half empty person. You instinctively know that, but how do you pick that up in a survey? We pick it up through the words. So when you look at the responses, people say, I guess, well, maybe it's just me. That's hedging. Okay, so what does that mean? It's dense hedging before critical statement signals low psychological safety. So they don't feel safe. So they kind of want to say it, but they don't, and then this is such a giveaway. It's a we versus us, or a they and them. So when it shifts from we to they, you now all of a sudden know they've extracted themselves. They don't belong there. They don't want to have anything to do with this, because there could be something coming back on them. Then there's the absolutist language, which is always, never, nothing changes. That's an intense amplifier. The feeling is generalized into an entrenched belief. And this is important. If you've got somebody who thinks they believe this now, to turn that is not so easy. And then there's the deflection and humor, jokes and irony at loaded moments, and this is where, they always say the truth always comes out when somebody tells a joke. Absolutely, that's true. And then this is agentless construction. Mistakes were made, it was decided, the act is removed, I'm 10, you're 5, they don't want to have accountability, etc. And then there's the corporate script, great culture, exciting journey, and they're performing for the instrument. Lowers the evidentiary weight of a positive signal. So, this is how we can identify it through the words they're using. We can pick up the tone, we can understand where they are. So you then take the empirical data that you've got and you overlay this, and you actually have something which is so valuable. So this last survey that we've done at Whisperer, 140 people, which is not a lot. And I think we got about 80 people that responded, which is interesting for me because that itself is a signal. But of the 80 people that we got, the number of words that we got was enough to write a 700-page novel. So that tells you just how much was said, and what people were thinking. They really want to talk, but they don't feel safe. So this is apparent worsening can sometimes be recovery. So, you get it, this goes up and down both ways. Indifference, investment withdrawn, energy and belief is gone, resignation, belief dying, frustration, still cares, and then energy and belief returning. So depending on how you go through this process, you can actually make people more positive about it in the process. So something one of the respondents said to me is that so I'll take you through Haven shortly. We'll have a few minutes to do that before question time. And you'll see that you respond, and then it feeds back to you and it says, so in summary, this is what you're saying. And then you read it, and some people said, they looked at that and they thought, well, yeah, that's not actually, but yeah, if I look at my response, that is how I'm feeling. But when somebody echoes it back to you or paraphrases what you've said, you sometimes realize that you're so harsh. And then when it says to you, and how would you do it differently? You realize, well, I actually don't have a way in which I do it differently. So maybe I shouldn't be so critical. So then they go back in and they rethink. And that's another important thing, is you actually think about what is happening. You don't just follow the party line and spew forth. So those are the important things that we can capture through this tool. So everybody says, yeah, but this will take months. And they say that because this type of stuff is what we used to try and extract through focus groups. So we used to have the quantitative survey, which was all the tick boxes. And then you used to have the qualitative survey, which is all the focus groups. And it would usually be an hour or an hour and a half. And you'd have 10 people in there, and one person would speak louder than another. And And that was always a problem, because whatever you got on the qualitative side really depended on who you had in the audience, whether their manager was with them or not. So you don't always get the honesty that you're looking for. And that did take long. I know that Sneha's on this call, and Sneha Vilakazi, and she did a project with me at Sasol. And it took forever for us to get through all of these surveys. It was a month, and we didn't do that many. And then we couldn't get all the information we needed, because you can't, it's impossible to capture all of what the survey can capture when people are talking, or AI can capture. And so it was just, it takes days now to get it through, so I think that's another important thing which makes this so powerful. So, when people want to find out what their engagement score is, telling them this is what they need. So they get the engagement report back, and it says we score 60 or 70 or 80. So that's fine, as long as we score above. And they completely ignore it. And then next time they run the survey, and people say, well, I don't want to say anything because you don't do anything with the information I give you. They can't understand that. So, the first conversation costs less time than another year of guessing what the score is. And I think that's really important. So I'm just going to take you through. Yeah, I think what we're wanting to understand, and this is just quick, we're wanting a diagnostic version of it. The why behind the number, we want lived evidence so they can tell you exactly an experience. So what Haven does is it asks, it says, you said that this is very difficult. Can you name me an instance when this happened? So you have lived experience that it's actually happened. Process or emotion verdict, which we've spoken about, and a recommendation, not a bill. So I think that's important, that how do you resolve this? How do you prioritize it, etc. So I think what I'm going to do now is let me just tell you a bit about ourselves. So we've developed the whole intelligent conversation level and the recommendation level. And Feedback Rocket, which has been around for many years, 13, they have run this type of research across many organizations. And they do the methodological there we go, yay, depth to frame the credible questions. And so they can design meaningful constructs when the information comes out. So you'll see when we go through it what it looks like. I will find a example report that I can send to all the people on this call so that you'll see what you get. But what I want to do now is actually take you into Haven so that you can see. So let me just stop sharing here. And then I'll just do a quick demo on Haven. And you can do that yourself, by the way, if you want to go into it. And we can post the link in the chat window, and you can go and play on Haven yourself if you want. Okay. All right. So the link's up top here. And this is, it gives you an explanation. A lot of it is already what I've told you. But this is a company that has gone through a lot. This is an example that we use. It's a company that's gone through a lot. They've restructured. They've tried to roll out AI. They're still trying to work out how to return to the office. They've got issues around trust and feeling heard, and workload and sustainability. So for the demo, we've said, okay, choose 2 questions, because this will take you too long if you have to do all 5. But this would be typically what the end user would see. What to try in the demo: be vague, question anonymity, challenge leadership, go off topic, refuse to answer, share a real concern. Now, I'm not going to do all of those, but you can. When you want to go through it, do it. And then there's a bit more. So if you're ready to try it now, let's go into it now. So here's the 2 topics that you choose. All right, you choose restructure, the rollout. So I'm going to actually choose the ones that for me are the most important, which is workload and sustainability, and trust and feeling heard. Those are the 2 that I want to choose. So what I'm going to do now is take you through the rest of the demo. Okay, so you choose a, what do you call it? No, sorry, this is.
Equity loader.
Yeah. So this is where I'm keying in my name, and this is not standard in all of the stuff. This is just for a demo because they want to know who has come and done their demo. So it's gated so they can phone you back and find out if you want something. And when I say they, I mean Haven, all right? The people from Haven, Feedback Rocket. But I will tell them that today we were on a call and they'll probably get a number of things from people. So you can either type or speak, okay? It's up to you. And then you can have it speak back to you or type back. And you can do this on your mobile in your car if you want as well. You can have a female or a male voice. And then there are settings for the voice. So you can speed it up if you want, or you can leave it at the normal pace. It gives you a nickname, or you can choose one. Okay, so I use the nickname Bright Spark because then the guys in the Haven office know that it's me doing a demo and they don't have to try and do something with it. So then it will give you, it'll say, okay, here we are. Here's the 2 topics that you've chosen, workload and sustainability. Now, if you're in a company, all 5 of those would be there and you would go through all of them. So it tells you, I'm Haven, I'm glad you're here. Here's how this works. Do you need any further information? So I'll say here, no, I'm good to go. And then here, if you switch on your mic, it listens and you can start speaking. So we've just rolled this out in a very closed community as well. And they have, they've got certain norms. And in actual fact, started pulling in those norms when it saw that the audience were talking about those norms. So it understands them. There's a level of intelligence behind it. So it was quite a Jewish community. And when they started talking about Jewish traditions, it then started feeding back in not Jewish language, but using Jewish traditional thoughts. So it says here, how sustainable does your current workload feel? So you can choose here. So let's say mostly unsustainable. Okay. So you'll see how it responds back to you. It says, thanks for sharing, Bryce-Bar. That's an honest answer and I appreciate it. Can you tell me a bit more about what's driving you feel that there's a sheer volume of work, a lack of support or something else entirely? So then it's volume more than anything. We lost roughly 15% of the team, but the client commitments didn't shrink at all. So that work just got redistributed across those of us who stayed. Last week I logged 58 hours and I'm still behind on 2 deliverables. So you respond with that and then Haven will come back and speak to you. That's a really telling picture, 58 hours and still falling behind. That's not a workload problem. You can't solve that by just working harder. You mentioned the team shrank, but client commitments has losing the middle management layer made things worse for you specifically? Like, are you picking up work that used to sit with someone else more senior? And then you can feed back to it. So can you see how that answering that question and asking that question and you answering determines how we manage to get the information that we get. So you'll go through this on until you're finished, so you can determine how long you want to carry on here, how much you want to say. So you can see I'm not typing that fast. We've got some preloaded content, but you will obviously answer this the way you will. And talking is often better. And people seem to find the talking better as well, because it's a bit of a cathartic experience. It's a bit like journaling, and people find that really useful. Even the typing is useful. So you'll see here, well, all of this pressure, are you able to switch off at all? Evenings, weekends, or does this work just bleed into everything? Why are we asking that? We want to get the temperature of resentment. Are people resenting that? Do they feel that this is an issue? So you'll feed that back. And it'll keep going for as long as you want to keep going. I think somewhere along the line, it will, if you've decided, okay, now you've had enough, you're ready to wrap up this topic and move on. So you'll see here again, it's saying, all right, that's a real important point. When the pace starts affecting quality of work itself, that's a signal that something is genuinely unsustainable. Does anyone above acknowledge what's going on? And then you can again give feedback. And you can carry on for as long as you like. When you decide, all right, fine, I think I've done enough now. I don't feel like doing anymore. You just say, ready to wrap up this topic. And here it's already asking, is this anything that we want to summarize the topic? So I'm going to say, yeah, ready to wrap up and move on to the next comment. Actually quicker if you switch on the voice and you do it at double the time. It's now summarized it. And it says to you, okay, on workloads and sustainability, this is what you're thinking. And it's picked up the verbatim comments, but because we want to keep it anonymous and we don't want people to feel pushed aside, you can actually say, I don't want verbatim comments to be listed in the feedback because somebody might recognize that it's me. So you can switch that off if you want. You can edit it and you can change something you want there. All right. And then once you're happy, you say approve, and this then gets fed in as the final answer. Now, a lot of people have said to me when they do this, that they feel Haven gives a eloquent answer for them. So where they previously didn't want to sit and write out stuff and they couldn't summarize it well, and I think we've all gone through that. You've got some ideas in your head and you can't pull them all together and you're all emotional about it, which hijacks you. Haven puts that into a format that you can look at and you can say, actually, yeah. And this is where people are saying when they read that, they think, okay, well, maybe that was a bit too generous, or it was a bit too harsh, and you can take it from there. So you also get people who are quite blunt when they feedback. So they're saying, okay, well, if this is how you're feeling, they say quite a bit. They don't have too much to say. They're kind of like, well, that's all I've got to say about this. So they're quite blunt in their approach. And I don't know, I probably spoke too fast on that. So then what does it do with that? It actually starts speaking to you, and it tries to draw information out of you. So it's quite cool in the way it works, but I think you've seen enough now. You all get it. So what I want to do now is I want to open the floor to questions, and I also want to Diane, who's with us, has got emotional intelligence training, so she'd be able to make some comments. Sonia has got a lot of leadership knowledge, and she'd be able to help. But can we maybe now have a conversation about this? How do you guys feel? What did you see? Is there something you like, something that you're interested in to understand further? Sonia, maybe you want to kick off with your feelings. I mean, you do a lot of work in research and what do you call it? Your sentiment analysis, which is sense making. So how do you see this helping organizations?
I think so I love the product, Linda, and I'm most of my experience has been with a product developed by Dave Snowden called SenseMaker, which I think I think this is going to be a big competitor for that, because some of the things that we, regardless of the tool, the problems that keep coming up are things like survey fatigue. People are so tired of the Likert scales and all the problems you already mentioned. They actually go through the process of doing the survey and then nothing changes and they don't feel listened to. And then it's just survey on survey on survey. And so I think this is a very elegant way to address that. And then I think the other thing is focus groups are inherently biased. So they take long and they're biased because, it's like I've facilitated focus groups, and even with the best of intentions, after a while you start forming an hypothesis of what's going on here and how you listen changes.
Yeah.
And so I think it's really useful to have the AI there. And then I think just the intelligence of being able to discern or distinguish between structural and process related issues and the human sentiment. So I think I think it solves a lot of the problems that many of these research tools have been trying to solve and haven't been able to in the past. So I think I'll stop there and give somebody else a chance.
Mel, would this be able to help you with where AI fits in the companies?
Yeah, so we're working with a couple of different surveys. I like very much the way you've positioned the emotional side of on this. Like taking into account the feelings of people and the way that you've positioned that, I think is very clever. Whereas a lot of the other surveys I'm working with working alongside two people that have created other surveys have not taken that into account. Well, not in the way that you have. I think that is very clever. But yeah, for sure, I think it is a very valid, the way you've approached it is very, very good. And what I like is I like the fact that they can speak to it. I like speaking to AI. And
Yeah,
I
me
feel
too.
like that becomes far more natural. You start speaking about things that you wouldn't normally, and it's answering you, and it becomes more conversational. And I think in that conversational style, you glean so much more from people than, like you say, when they're filling in a tick box, or even when they're typing to like just get this done. But when it starts feeling conversational, and I mean I don't know if you guys have tried out ChatGPT's new conversational style, but I mean it is getting so much better.
No, it is.
It's really, really improved. So I think that from that, you're going to be able to get far more depth than
Yes.
the other way. Yeah, I really like that. Yeah.
Any other questions, comments?
So Linda,
Yeah.
just a quick one. How do you determine decide what the issues are? So let's say I have I've just gone through a process with a client who had somebody committed suicide in their office, and it came down to the fact that there was no trust, and it was a work issue that made this person commit suicide, and the organization was in complete trauma because of that. So I mean, I'm just looking at a process like this, how amazing it would be, because now you can actually survey everybody. You now have access to scale where you don't just survey the 3 or 4 people randomly. And you're surveying those emotions and where does this come from and how do they feel about it and all of that kind of stuff, because it became a well-being issue. But then when we started working on it, we realized that it was a trust. There was a whole lot of other stuff there. They were thinking it was well-being, but it was layers and layers and layers of things that could be looked at, it could be changed, but it immediately fell into the well-being category. And I really think this is something. Love the conversation, because I agree with Mel. The more you talk, when you're talking, you are expressing more, and you're saying things that you probably wouldn't type. I'm more formal when I type. I'm more informal when I talk. And my brain works differently when I talk. So, as I talk, I'm thinking, but as I'm typing, something else happens. So, love the product. I think that's really good. And I just need to understand in a situation. I now have a client that has a trauma, or it has come to me and said, "Di, we need to create an intervention. There's been a suicide in the business." So that's sort of my one-liner, Diane. We've got a problem. Where do I go to if I want to use Haven?
Sure. So, well, I mean, you obviously contact us, but if you want to know how to create the detection layer, that in itself is a detection, isn't it? It's like, let's have a conversation about this. And you don't have to use the full product. You can use Pulse to do that, which is sort of like a monthly thing that you can use because people might want to come on and go off. So, when I'm saying that you might have people that are on leave and who might miss it, so you want to let it just lie open for a while, and that itself will be the detection. You will try to understand how people are feeling about it, and how it affects them, etc. So you just have to have one discussion topic. You don't have to have 10, but if you've got, like Mel spoke about AI, wanting to understand how AI is working for them. That could just be one discussion topic. In other words, I think the old way in which we've ran research is that if we're going to do this, we have to have everything and anything, that we can put into this piece of research because we don't want to get research fatigue, etc. But instead of making this that the talk in the business isn't always about the business. It's often about other things. And that's what we're trying to capture. We're trying to say, what is the talk in the business that's affecting everybody, and how do we capture that? So we can have a Haven or the full pulse Haven or the pulse Haven running, and you can have just one conversation topic. You don't have to have everything, and you can draw the information out of it. Although you might sit down and say to leadership, look, and this is where, you remember in there I said there's attention labs, and I think it could be a attention or ideation lab. Get the top management together, and here I would ask Sonia or Temba or any of our team really to sit down and say, all right, what do you think was a contributing factor to this? And therefore, what conversations would help people feel good about this or feel better about it?
If I can just...
Yes, sure. And then Charles also has a comment now.
Yeah, I just want to jump in on that. I don't know if you guys have ever watched or seen this happening in like a world chess tournament. I've seen it happening there. I've seen it happening in years back, that program called Big Brother. I don't even know if it's on still anymore. But what would happen is people would then come to a room or a space and say, this is how I'm feeling right now about this given situation. So that's how Pulse works in my mind. So often during a chess tournament, Magnus Carlsen, the world #1, or used to be, I don't know if he still is now, would come in and say, this is why I played this way. This is why I did this. And you're giving like genuine feedback. It's almost like the Formula One drivers being interviewed on the starting line of a race to see where their mind is and what they're thinking and what they're doing. So you're giving your people in your organization an opportunity to say, this is what I'm thinking about now. This is where I'm at now. And the real power of it is that you can then, as an organization, take this information and put it together collectively to say, this is how the organization, so in other words, almost like a temperature check. This is where we're feeling now from a business processes point of view. This is where our emotional state is at the moment. So it's kind of like you can have this barometer almost that's in real time to say, this is how we're feeling this week. This is how the needles move. So we put this intervention in as an organization, and this has been the impact because our people are telling us this. So it's really a wonderful opportunity to very effortlessly, and like Diane said, I love that word, scale. The scale is such a powerful word because big organizations need to understand that they can do things transparently, honestly, and effectively now, but not worrying about, is it being manipulated by someone trying to do things manually? AI is a brilliant tool that can put all this together, can synthesize it, and to give a meaningful report about whatever direction you want to go in. So in my mind, it's so exciting that you can do things in real time.
I also think, Diane, just coming back to your question, like, I know why we created this whole conversational intelligence part and why we did it. But the one thing that I've realized is that I think we need to look at businesses differently today. We need to go back to first principles. So if for instance, if I had to start my business from scratch again, how would I do it? AI would be a huge part of my strategy. And I would sort of like redo my whole business completely differently. And so this is the same. Although we've got an understanding of what we can do, we're still trying to apply old technology or terminology, like research terminology, to it. So, ages ago when we had the radio and then all of a sudden TV came out, the TV was now just the radio with the picture, and then people realized you can do so much more with a TV than what you ever could with the radio. That's what we're busy to uncover now, is that, you need to just think out of the box. What do I want to know? What would be really useful for me to have a conversation with my business about? So I don't have all the answers, which I've always known, sadly, but I wish I did have all the answers. But I think that's why we have a community like this, is because we want to hear, what are you guys trying to hear? What are you guys trying to understand? And what tools can help us? So this is one that obviously I've been working with for a long time because I just love it. But there are other tools out there. Devon has got the most incredible understanding of AI intelligence and not AI intelligence, AI literacy and how you measure that. And there's 3 different levels, so that's one of our future sessions, which is really to discuss that, because I think, people think they like good at AI when all they do is inference. They haven't started using it to run their office or to alleviate their workload or anything like that. So something like this, I'm sitting with this massive amount of data now, and I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, okay, the first thing I need to do is understand why everybody's feeling so overwhelmed and where I can use AI to alleviate that, because I think people are not looking at it like that. They still see AI just as a chatbot, and it's not. It's that much more. So I think really that's the reason I love our meetings, because people can sort of ask questions and say, this might be useful, or that might be useful, or anybody else got some comments and some questions?
So I just want to make a last comment, and this it fits really into what Mel is doing, is that I think running a survey in this way, where you have a chatbot that you are chatting to, is part of the intervention of actually making people comfortable with using AI. I mean, just as an example, so I with my client, I used Mentimeter, which was the only product that I could find that was that protected the individuals, and it was astounding the kind of information that came on, but it came onto the screen where everybody could see it. I can just imagine the depth of my intervention now, which I think I might even want to redo, based on this conversational intelligence component. Or ability. I think that for me, it takes it to the next. This for me is a game changer in the kind of work that we're doing at the moment, because there's a lot of where we're playing at the moment. We're playing in the wellness space or the well-being space, where I think a lot of things are being hooked onto that wagon that doesn't actually, that doesn't belong there. It doesn't belong there, but nobody can extract that. Nobody can say, okay, but it's a trust issue, or it's a process issue, or it's a whatever. It's just banged into the well-being wagon, and we all know where the well-being wagon sits, like far down the caboose, hierarchy.
Right,
it's like it's the caboose. So this for me is a game changer. I love it. Thank you.
Melanie, you've
got
your hand up.
Another Mel on the call.
Another Mel.
Thank you for this. Thank you for the, it's really exciting to see, and I love the concept of being able to chat through something. I think, definitely a cathartic outlet. My brain sort of goes to the practical side on implementing something like this, and so I have a question around. I can see this working easily for like your knowledge workers, but have some of your clients been more where you've got a split in workforce, and they're trying to run this kind of survey across different profiles. So maybe just an example, when I was at Coke, we would run our survey online for the people that have access to laptops, but in most of our countries on the floor, we'd either set up tablets or we'd literally print a long survey. We left it up to the HR BPs in the country to decide what was better. And that is a process to get that done across 18,000 people, like every year, So how have you implemented this and this kind of thinking across an organization that may have a split in the workforce? What's worked for you guys in that sense?
So one of the companies that we've worked with does have a split. They've got blue collar workers as well, and so some of the blue collar workers have chosen to answer it on their phone because they do have mail, etc., on their phone. Some don't. So there's been like an office where there's PCs where they can go and sit and they can give their feedback as well. I think what's been interesting is that we've been exploring and found it quite easy in one instance because it was another language, but it was just one. But I think we could quite easily do it in multiple languages.
Yeah, I was just thinking that security guard that did it in Zulu, and he spoke to the thing, and it was like a phenomenal experience for him.
Yeah, so he felt so comfortable because we had a security guard who did it, and he did it in Zulu, and he felt very comfortable because it even read him back his response in Zulu, and he said, "Yeah, that's what I want to say," and then it translates it back into English for us to roll it up, because just as Diane was saying, when you speak, it makes such a difference,
It resonates so
Yeah, it
well.
resonates so much. And I think that, yeah, you can do that. We just haven't, as I've said, we haven't used it everywhere and anywhere, but on the occasions where we've had an opportunity, and it was really Zulu and English, we did implement it there. So I don't think it's the foundation is there for us just to put a tweak in. And I think something interesting, Terry was saying, are there any options to have a visual AI, select a face I want to speak to? I'm sure that would be possible. I think anything is possible.
Yeah.
That's what's so amazing.
Yeah.
And groups like this, that's why we wanted to bring it. So please understand, I'm not trying to sell this to you. I'm trying to say to you, this is what we've got. We've started working with it. It's really working well. You guys are all interested in AI and human ingenuity. How do we bring it together? So thank you, Terry. That's very useful. I'd never even thought of putting a face to it.
I think if I can jump in, I think that digital avatar. So a lot of organizations have got a digital avatar that talks about a selling process, and this is what we do, and spews forth about the organization. So you could have a wellness digital avatar. So you've got a face and a voice that is specifically designed and selected for that purpose. And then people engage visually, like speaking to a person like on a call like this. I think that would be extremely powerful.
Yeah, me too.
Very exciting.
I think so as well.
Gavin would be overwhelmed with excitement too if we shared that with him.
These ideas are brilliant. Thank you so much for contributing, Melanie. It helps us a lot. Karen.
Oh, thanks. No, thank you for the feedback. It's great to just see what you've done. So it helps us to think also further into how you could implement things.
Good. Excellent.
Linda, thank you so much. I think it's a really valuable and exciting product. Also, I can echo the comments, and I liked also your question, Melanie, on the different workforces that you might have. Just a question, where does it fit into your bigger listening strategy? If you look at your larger corporates, they still have the employee experience survey, which they benchmark with, norm groups. Is this the additional layer, or do you see it replacing it? I can see how you use it as a pulse tool just for certain topics, but maybe your larger corporates, where do you see this fitting in?
Well, I really think it depends, So we have also got 2 other products, which is a normal sort of engagement survey, but you can use this for that as well. So it really depends on how exploratory an organization wants to be, and how much they want to listen and hear, because I think, like I said, we've got 120 people on one survey, and the report was massive. There's just so much we've uncovered that to now synthesize it and say, okay, where do we go from here, is actually a big job. Whereas I think a lot of the branding, the engagement, the typical engagement survey sort of covers 4 topics. So we could do the same with this, but even if you just do like 4 topics, you're still going to get 3 times the amount of information that you would have got with normal research. It's more valuable. And so you'll be able to do more with it. But you can, absolutely. We've rolled it out at banks, at APSA. Probably a hybrid of this and normal questions. So remember when we did the first question, well, both of them, it came up and it asks you 2 or 3 things and you tick boxed it. So that gives you the quantitative stuff, and then there's the question. So we can limit it to like how long the conversation takes if they're worried about time, because that's obviously something that people always complain about is time, is to say, how much time do we have? Everybody needs to do this within 10 minutes or something. It's crazy. They're really giving you feedback. That's so irrelevant to me. So I think that it's important that we bring it into business either as a hybrid or as both, but everything's possible, so we have also Feedback Rocket also do full engagement surveys across the board, but the normal stuff. But once you've used this, you won't go back to a normal survey, I can guarantee you.
Wonderful.
Does that
Thank
answer
you.
your question?
Yes, thank you. I'm just looking from the larger corporate and then also this SME type of client, just in terms of affordability, because often they're already under contract with Gallup or with, so it will be interesting to see where it commercially can fit in because it's extremely valuable.
It is.
So I'll do the demo and I'm sure then one can collaborate and understand a little bit more about the
Yes.
commercial model behind it.
Yes, do that. And then get in contact with me and I'll help you out. We have got some sort of like rack pricing, but it always depends on numbers. That's the main thing, because the amount of data we get from this, and like we're always saying, when we're analyzing it, we say, oh, there goes time, months, tokens. So talk about token economics. Wow. Cool.
Thank
Yeah. Any other questions, comments? Gosh, are we going to like be able to close it down 30? I can't believe that. Thanks for attending, Sneh. You take care. Hope to see you next time again.
Terry.
Terry.
Terry's got it. Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, Terry.
Hi.
Hi.
Not there we are. Okay, juggling. I have recently just rolled out a little survey as a preemptive for a leadership program that I was rolling out. And one of the things from a audience, and I might have missed it, as you said at the beginning, education, the risk of surveys is once your target audience know that you know what the issues are, we've already raised the expectation that you're going to do something about it. And I'm just wondering how we navigate educating people to say sometimes, even though we know about something, we're going to prioritize what we're going to tackle to start fixing in the organization. Otherwise, you have raised expectations that you know about it, you're going to do everything and you're going to tackle everything. How do you navigate the education of that when people are participating in these surveys and there's just so much feedback and the organization has to choose which hill they're going to die on to tackle the issues?
Sonia, you would be best suited to answer this question.
Yeah, I think, and this is a tool independent kind of a problem.
Yeah, no, agreed.
I think, so what we normally tell, so the cynical part of me, I've dealt with several executives who ask for surveys, and then actually when they get the results back, you realize they didn't actually want to know all of this stuff. And then I've lost some clients because of just the honesty of some of the results. But I think what we've done in cases like that is to actually, the first round is for people to communicate the results, because this is another thing that happens is people fill out these surveys and then they never actually get the results. And part of that communication, so to almost say, this is what came out, we've heard you, we've listened to you, and this is what we're going to act on. I think that is the almost the missing link. So people, sometimes the organization chooses to act on something, but they don't communicate. And I think the first part of this is if somebody has, especially in this instance, Linda, if they've given you between 60 and 90 minutes of their time to respond, I think the very first thing to do is to just tell them what the results were. And that can be a team leader conversation, but I think there's the opportunity then to say, we've heard all of these things, but we've prioritized and we're going to act on these ones. And then to actually act, because I think that's the other thing, is to tell people you're going to act and then you don't, that breaks the trust again. So while I have the floor, Linda, I need to drop off for another call. So
Yeah,
I won't
sure.
be able to wrap, but it was so great to spend time with all of you. And I'll see you again at the end of the month.
Yeah. Sonia, listen, thanks so much for your time. We'll chat again today. We've got a couple of things on the cook. Thank you. Cheers. Diane.
So Terry, this Mentimeter well-being process that I went through, we basically summarized everybody's feedback and we fed that back to the team. And we said, these are the 12 issues that have risen out of your feedback. What are your top 4 themes that you personally would want us to work on? So we had this team of 120 people, and they then said, okay, these are so obviously some of the people, they didn't get what they wanted, but the team then decided what the top 3 or top 4 issues were that we needed to deal with. And then basically we worked from the top. We went from the one to the next to the next. So it's almost getting your team to, first of all, give you the information, prioritize what needs to be done, and then go into the implementation of that. And that was hugely successful because in the process, you got the buy-in for the work that needed to be done. And in that itself is a barrier that you often get when you're going through these kinds of surveys and things, is that, the barriers to actually do the change. But they were part of making the decision what needed to be done. It wasn't a top-down thing, and it really, really worked well. So that's just some feedback from my side.
Diane, thanks. That's exactly
Diane.
what we did in our leadership program as well. And it also was so powerful. I was just curious how this particular product was going to navigate that. But I love that approach. It's so much more engaging. Thank you.
In actual fact, Mel, sorry, Terry, what we could do is you could say in closing, if there's one thing that you had to choose that needed to be made a difference of, what would it be?
Exactly.
So I often use the concept of, if 10 is perfect and 1 is bad, where are we? Are we on 4? And what do you think would need to happen for us to move to 5? And let them pick one. And that will also help us tremendously, won't it? Mel.
Sorry, I know everybody's chomping to drop off, so am I. But just a last thought, as Diane was speaking, I was thinking there's a great opportunity in this at the very end of the survey, and maybe it does that, but I haven't been through it now, for self-reflection. So when you've done the whole survey and the AI now says to you, okay, in summary, this is what I've heard from you. Would you say I am correct in, this? Is there anything you would like to change about that now that we've had this conversation?
Yeah, it gives you, so instead of doing it question for question, it's like you're saying, do the whole thing. Okay.
Yes, and also, as right at the end, it just summarizes everything, because often, it's that thing, and hearing yourself back, you go, I've already shifted. Something's changed. I feel, well, you could just say, well, I feel better now, or I feel this now, or whatever. Or maybe I'm going to change my mind about that idea. So I just thought that would be a nice kind of wrap up at the end.
It is. Good idea. Yeah, thank you for that. It's very useful and quite easy to do.
Yes,
it's not that it's difficult to do.
No,
so
AI will do it naturally.
Isn't that what just blows your mind about where we are? And I don't understand people who still don't think AI is just the best thing that's landed. Look, I think you've got to grab it by the scruff of its neck every now and then and make sure it's directed in the right direction. But it's incredible. Yeah. But listen, thank you so much for that. And with that, unless there's any other questions, guys, I think we need to close to let everybody get on with their life.
Yeah.
And thank you so much for your attendance. It's great having you here.
Thanks, Linda, for hosting this. Really, really valuable. Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. See you soon.
Bye.
Thanks,
everybody.
everybody.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye. Bye. Bye.